Hi guys, welcome to another edition of the Rangman Show. Amruta Khare is back on the show because if we have to do wrestling, we can't do it without Amruta Khare. I haven't seen a more passionate fan than her. I've seen myself and then I've seen her. But guys,
You've
sorry
seen
we
the
couldn't.
mirror.
I've seen the mirror. Yeah. The girl has a sense of humor. That's good. So before we get into this podcast, I'm sorry that we didn't have a podcast last week, though we had decided that we should be doing something on wrestling every week. But the legend that we're discussing today is a guy of such high stature, of so much magnitude, that we had to build your appetite for that. And that's why we came 2 weeks late. And as they say that good things come to those who wait. So the good thing or the best thing has come, and it's The Undertaker. So Amruta Khare and I will be discussing The Undertaker today. And I don't think it gets better because Undertaker is WWE and WWE is Undertaker. So do you agree?
Yeah. For me, Taker is my childhood. He is the most amazing man who could carry one person off for 30 years. I mean,
yeah,
he is WWE.
You know, if there's a case study on how to be relevant over time, I think it should be on Undertaker.
Yeah.
So
and across different generations.
So speaking about that, so guys, I will first discuss my first memory of Taker because unfortunately the girl on the other side wasn't born there. This was when he debuted in 1990, and there was a big egg which had come as a mystery egg that was being shown as a lead up to the debut of The Undertaker. And I must tell you this, The Undertaker in his recent documentary, The Last Ride, was rather skeptical about the fact that he might debut as the Eggman. And he was getting nightmares about that, thinking that Vince McMahon is getting me from WCW to WWE, and I was mean Mark Callis and WCW, and I really didn't want to debut as a Eggman because that would be quite, at that point in time, there were a lot of over-the-top characters, and I'm sure Undertaker didn't want to do that, so that's why he was skeptical debuting as the Eggman, and luckily that egg didn't have any significance, and Undertaker debuted as the Wrestling Mortician, which couldn't be better. He debuted for the $1 Million Team under Ted DiBiase, and the first guy he fought with in the ring, do you know who was the first guy? Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yeah, I saw it in the documentary. Yeah. Like, you can't have a...
So he was the guy under the American Dream Team, under Dusty Rhodes. And I think Undertaker he beat two guys and then he chased Dusty Rhodes away and his team won. So that was my first memory. Amrita, what was your first memory of The Undertaker?
So I was quite young. I would have been...
You still look very young, yeah?
No, I meant I was like little young, like baby young back then. So for me, the first memory of Taker would have to be the Ministry of Darkness, the Stephanie abduction and the burning her toys away and all that jazz when he was like in that very dark zone. For me, that is the first point. That's a scary man. I should be scared of him. And yeah, I still am.
So did you find that whole Stephanie McMahon teddy bear burning and then she being put on that cross and that unholy marriage or the unholy alliance happening and then Stone Cold comes and saves the day? Did you see that as a Bollywood film?
Yeah, for me, those are the flashes that I remember. Versus, see, I can clearly remember the American Badass saving Stephanie from, I think, Alberto, or I don't remember the name of the guy. But the guy is now a head coach at NXT.
King Albert.
That's Albert, right?
Yeah, King Albert. Yeah.
King Albert. So
They had a tag team that time, Albert and Test. They were the tag team.
Yes. So, for me, Taker is that scary guy and still is that scary guy. Even if he's the American Badass or still the Dead Man, he is that scary guy. And by then, I was not used to consuming content wherein I was allowed to see a scary person up front. And that's when I thought, oh my God, nothing can be scarier than this man. Because he had those long hair and the hat and the black robe. And the music was, so, the gongs and everything just made for the perfect recipe of scary.
Yeah,
so
I
for
think
me,
there was this guy, there's this guy called as Jim Johnston. He was the guy who composed the Rest in Peace track.
Yes.
After that, tell me, do you have any memory? I know you weren't born there, but do you remember this Royal Rumble match that happened between Undertaker and Yokozuna in 1994? I'm sure you must have seen videos in which a group of heels, the casket match, in which a group of heels come led by Crush, and they put Undertaker in the casket, and then the whole the green smoke comes out of the casket, and then they have this vertical glimpse in which Undertaker's soul is going up, a rather shadow, and then he speaks. Wasn't that an epic moment? I mean, I was mesmerized that day. I was like all of maybe 9, and I was crying. I was like, what's happening?
So for me, I haven't seen these moments live. So I can't really comment because I've seen them in the docu-series, The Last Ride, that you spoke about.
Watch the match for sure because it's highly entertaining.
Yeah. And he was very
watch the complete match, not in the docu, but the match in its entirety. And believe you me, you will get the chills.
Obviously, it's Taker. I have to, and I'm already invested in Taker. I have. Even today, I would rather watch a match between Taker and some guy versus any of the new lot. I mean, Taker in his prime. Well, his prime was for 30 years, but yeah, for me, that's the case.
What did you think about the Undertaker versus Undertaker match at SummerSlam 1994?
That was hilarious, but scary. I mean, see, scary will be there in whatever undertone you're talking about Taker. But for me, that was, I was not very happy with the angle. The best storyline with Taker for me, there are 2, 3, but the one that stands out for me is Randy Orton. I mean, putting a guy like Randy Orton on that map, making sure that he gets that footage. I mean, that's the thing you learn from such legends, that you can still make it work for a guy like Randy Orton. He was like the youngest world champion, and then you get chills wrestling against a legend like Taker, but he made it work.
Then do you remember the return match that Undertaker and Yokozuna had in 1994 at the Survivor Series, where the Undertaker took his revenge?
So
you should watch these matches. Yeah, you should watch these matches in their entirety.
I remember Taker after, let's say, 96 onwards, 90, like the Attitude Era. That is my memory of Taker.
So 96 is when Mankind debuted, and the first person he went after was Undertaker, and that's when Paul Bear turned heel. He started siding with Mankind. If you remember, they had the Boiler Room match. Then they had
Hell in a Cell. Who can forget that Hell in a Cell? The fall, and Mankind broke, I think, most of his teeth, or the teeth fell out, and the nails, and still he continued that match. I mean, hats off to Taker as well and Mankind. I mean, he was crazy enough to do it and execute it.
But before we go there, I was a little, I won't say disappointed, but I was a little sad that Taker let go of that coat, those gloves, that hat, because if you remember in 96, end of 96, he had a more contemporary look. I think he had taken a break, and then he came back on this Batman symbol. I don't remember against who. And then he had this more contemporary look where he had these short sleeves, and he didn't have those gloves, but he had something else. So
so the hybrid
and the last time that no, this was in 96 only when he came back. He wasn't he was in the Rest in Peace character, the Phenom, but he wasn't in that more Western mortician, the typical Undertaker look. He had basically evolved to look a little more contemporary because the Attitude Era was upon us. And before, no, actually in '97, I remember he still went back to that look for this one match against Psycho Sid at WrestleMania. That was, and the best part is that he wore his grey gloves there. He didn't wear his purple gloves because when he came back,
they look like oven mitts.
They look like?
They look like oven mitts. If you see them closely, they look like huge.
Yeah. I was really impressed with that. You want to dwell a little on Undertaker and Bret Hart matches because those have also been kick-ass for me.
Those are epic. I mean, you have two legends doing these legendary matches, and for me, I have seen them post their glory. So at this point, I did not understand the hype then because I wasn't born then. I was very young then. But now I understand. Okay, what effort did it take for these two guys to actually make it happen and be those legends that they are today? You know, Taker was the one who stopped Bret from actually killing Vince McMahon because he was so furious when he was leaving, and Shawn Michaels just won it.
In that room after the Montreal screw job, there was Taker, there was Bret, there was Shawn. So Taker was sitting next to Shawn. There was Vince on one side of the table and there was Bret on the other side. And Bret literally pounced on him and gave him I think a high shot. But you know, for me, so at that point, WCW was winning the Monday Night Wars. And possibly for Vince, there were only 4 guys who could retort in a way that WWE could overpower WCW. And those were Taker, Bret, Shawn, and Stone Cold. Because Stone Cold was coming into his Steve Austin. He was coming into his old rattlesnake avatar at that point in time. So the way these guys were promoted and the way Bret Hart and Undertaker were pushed at that point in time was phenomenal for me. Because at that point, they were the 2 biggest baby faces.
Yeah.
Before in '97, Bret went
everyone, like from Kevin Nash to your Goldberg to you name the star and Turner
Macho Man, Sting, Scott Hall, everyone was there. Hulk Hogan. They were just killing it. And do you want to just talk about Undertaker's loyalty towards WWE and not for even once thinking about going to WCW? Forget actually going.
Yeah, and I was so surprised. So when I watched the docu-series, there's a bit where he's like, why have you stayed loyal to Vince? See, for me, WWE is Vince McMahon. That's the simple equation one can do. And, you know, they trust each other so much that even when he was not convinced of few matches during his later stages, he still did them because he knew the company needed him. He knew that they were going on a war and, you know, they were not winning it. So he did those matches, even if they were blotches or they lasted only for 20 seconds, he still did them. So I think that man shares a connection with Vince that I don't think we can understand. Maybe they owe each other. They owe each other a lot, and that respect that they share is so different from any other relationship I've seen in the wrestling profession. You have your John Cena's and the CM Punks, but that kind of loyalty, today he's retired, he's still not wrestling, but he's still signed on to WWE. I mean, that speaks a lot when you have Impact Wrestling or AEW coming up. He's not going to go there, even if you offer him $1 million. So I think that is something very special. Even Ric Flair turned tables and he went on to other shows. So this man has dignity, integrity, and loyalty, which is very rare in that business, particularly.
Do you want to spend some time on the wrestler's court? You know about the wrestler's court? I'm saying, do you want to spend some time on the wrestler's court?
Obviously.
Do you want to tell the viewers about the wrestler's court?
So wrestler's court is basically if something happened in the locker room, they would be they would get together, have this session wherein your judge was the Undertaker, and you had both the parties, how do I put it? Both the parties sharing their side of the story, and Undertaker would make the decision if something was wrong or right. And the punishment would usually involve some kind of payment of booze to the taker, to the Undertaker. So you would had to buy some, I think Jack Daniels or some brand of booze if you were in the receiving end of the punishment. So there have been incidences where I think major wrestlers got in trouble with another wrestlers or with the staff as well, and they were taken to people's court. That's what it was called.
Yeah. So Amrita, tell me. So yeah, go on.
Story. I said any stories you particularly want to tell about the court?
Wrestlers court. There's so many. Recently I was watching one documentary which said that Melina was having an affair with Batista, and they'd done something wrong, and they were brought in front of the Undertaker, and his judgment was like, dude, if you guys hamper any other wrestler, you guys are gonna have it. And his personality was such that when he spoke, the other people had to listen. I mean, there was no option, and there was no going away, and there was no. I mean, the scope to argue was zilch.
Yeah.
Because
so
as the American badass, if you remember, he had made this line. He had said this line that I'm the judge, jury, and executioner. And so that is so true for Undertaker as in the wrestler's court.
Yeah, he's earned that respect, so he can demand it.
100%. And he was doing this since the late 90s. It wasn't like he did it in the 2000s. I mean, just imagine he debuted in 1990, and I think he was doing this in the late 90s. So in about 6-7 years, the amount of respect the guy earned was like phenomenal. I mean, it takes people like 15 years to earn that kind of respect, which he did in 6-7 years.
But do you see the careers that he launched? I mean, you see, you start with, I would start with, late 90s, because that's how I know him. You have Undertaker himself. Then you have Kane. Then you have Randy Orton. Then you have Edge. Then you have Khali, The Big Show. Then Rey Mysterio, the whole entire SmackDown angle with him winning and not winning the belt. Who else? Chris Jericho at that point as well. So you have, I named at least 10 stars by now, and all of them owe a major chunk of their career to this man.
Especially Kane, because the guy as that evil dentist and then as the fake Diesel was going nowhere. Let's be honest. I mean, he was literally screwing up TV time. And then whoever's brainchild was to launch him as Undertaker's young brother who was born was phenomenal, because the kind of gravitas that his character got, half brother. The kind of gravitas that character got as, Glenn Jacobs got as debuting as Kane was fantastic. And it was only befitting that he would come in Taker's match, because otherwise Kane wouldn't have much significance anyway.
And look at the features as well. He's tall,
and truth be told, I was actually a little shaken up. I mean, a little scared when I saw Kane for the first time. I was like, sorry viewers, but I was like, who is he, man? Like, he looks so scary, he looks so intimidating. मतलब इसको और अंडरटेकर का कुछ ना कुछ तो रिलेशन हो ही गई.
And the fire angle, the fire and then the death and the mystery, it just adds up. I mean,
and we weren't mature enough to understand storylines versus real stories at that point in time. So I actually, for a good till early 2000s, I felt that they're actually brothers.
Yeah, and the kind of bond that they share is, I mean, phenomenal. So do you know this weird thing that? So
go on.
Taker hates the word cucumbers, or he hates the vegetable cucumbers, and Paul Bearer was so mischievous that he would like keep them in his locker room and his kit or something or the other. So he was fun backstage, is what I got through the documentary, the docu-series actually.
The WrestleMania that he didn't wrestle, I think after there was a gap between wrestling John Cena and after he lost to Roman Reigns, I think he missed one Mania, or
Okay.
after John Cena, I don't remember which one. The guy was still present at the arena, and he was motivating every wrestler backstage. He was
Yeah,
like going in and talking to everyone. I mean, that's the humility of the man. Despite being such a big star, you're just like motivating every wrestler on the scene is fantastic.
Yeah, and he did it for his wife as well. When Michelle McCool
Michelle
was
McCool,
wrestling
yeah.
in Evolution Battle Royal, I think he was there backstage just being a supportive husband. I said, how cool this man can be, man.
I've lost your volume. Can you repeat that?
I said how cool this man is. He's supporting his wife. He's still on his own. He has a legendary career. I mean, it's just a shame that he had to end it during COVID, and he couldn't get that fanfare. See, you have a week of WrestleMania.
It's the biggest event in the entire US.
Yeah, and you have options for the stadiums and stuff like that. Then when you have Taker going out, you don't have stadium filled with people. I mean, that's just injustice.
So tell me about his transition from, say, such a dark character, a big heel in Ministry of Darkness, to suddenly coming as the American badass. So how do you feel that time?
I was very unsure. Then he had that stable with his with Kane and his wife as well. Then wife. And I was a little Sarah. And I was not sure. Yeah, he had, but then he got he fixed it. Let's just put it that way. So for me, it was more on the lines of, okay, this guy, I've known this guy for a long time now. What else can he do? And I've seen people do that. I mean, you have Mankind, Mick Foley doing 10 different versions. You had the Socko and everyone.
Cactus Jack and Mick Foley. And Mankind, obviously.
Mankind, obviously. So by then I had seen people do that. But for me to take Taker seriously as the American badass was a huge shift as well. So I was not interested, but still invested because, okay, I know the guy. I need to know what he's doing. He was active in the tag division and not the singles. So I was like, as is he's doing like the B graded B card things. But then once he got back in the evil, I don't know, 2004 avatar, 2002, 2004, he was back in his Dead Man Walk. That's when I was, okay, he's doing it. Honestly, I was not interested in the American badass, the biker, the Texan guy. You had so many of them already on the show. So I was not,
But in those characters also, the way he grabbed the attention of the audience was fantastic.
Yeah. Because he still made it work. That's how he stayed relevant all these years. He was ready to reinvent. But then you have to see also that he never broke the kayfabe. He was there. 100%. He was the American badass even after the cameras turned off.
Yeah.
And the only place you could...
So basically, that was Undertaker, Mark Calaway's actual personality, which was brought on screen. Because he is this biker dude, and he is majorly into basketball, MMA, and he pretty much showed that. Yeah, but for me, Undertaker once said that before my audience starts thinking that my relevancy has gone down, I need to know that my relevancy has gone down so that I can reinvent myself. And that is what he figured in 1999 during the Ministry of Darkness time, that maybe, just maybe, the audience won't warm up to him if he continues in this character going forward. And he had some injury, and then he told Vince that I have to come back as something very different. But that was a complete 180 shift. I still remember it was not Stone Cold. It was The Rock versus Triple H. They were battling it out, and Shawn Michaels was the referee. And suddenly you had the gong, but after the gong you didn't have the familiar tune. You had a very different tune happening, and suddenly you see this guy coming on a bike, and like, oh, that's the Undertaker. Even Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler were like, oh, that's the Undertaker.
Yeah. So that was refreshing, but I generally didn't see. I cannot say I did not like it, but I was okay. He's doing it. He's there on the show. For me, that was. But then again, imagine the athleticism. He was such a big guy, and he's doing those suicide dives. He's doing the old school. He's doing the big boots. I mean, that is something I never expected. A man that huge being so active in the ring. You know, you have seen the Great Khali or the Big Show. They were still. They were just
Stiff.
giants.
Yeah.
They couldn't wrestle. But this guy, he made it work.
Khali is one of the stiffest wrestlers, man. His movements were like, and you know, like as a viewer, you can make out who is flexible in their moves and who are not so flexible because like the camera doesn't lie. So, and believe me, when
again,
you're totally engrossed into the action, go on.
I said, imagine that dynamic with Rey Mysterio. I mean, the guy is short and Undertaker is yay big. And how do you make that dynamic work? And he made it work.
His over-the-top jump that he used to take was like epic. I mean, over the third rope when he used to jump on superstars outside. Remember that?
The suicide dive.
The suicide dive. Yeah, that was like, I mean, I haven't seen anyone this big do it better. Like, even for that matter, Kane wasn't as flexible as Taker was.
No. I haven't seen a man that huge who is as flexible as Taker.
100%.
So for me, suicide dive is the one. It is so engraved in my memory. Is the first match with Shawn Michaels where he is like, okay, Michaels is out there. I'm gonna take the dive. He does it and falls on a cameraman.
Yeah.
And that is just, I mean, you know, to time it, to make sure that, okay, I have to land there. And still with his injuries and that body and taking it there after 25 minutes into the match and you're still so active. I'm perplexed. I really want to talk about those 4 matches, Pranay.
We'll get there. Before that, tell me, what did you think about Undertaker's return as the hybrid character when he had this buried alive match against Vince McMahon, where Kane obviously played a role to bury him, and then the build up to Kane, I mean, these scripted messages coming that my brother's still alive and he's not admitting it, and suddenly he sees him. So what was your whole take on that?
Oh, I loved it. I was so into it. I was like, yeah, my Taker is back. I was so pumped about it because then, see, you have these 2 characters and Vince being in the middle of everything. I love it. I loved when Vince was against the whole ECW and Stone Cold versus McMahon era. That I loved all those storylines because you have the boss who is just taking it out on people. And the twist here was, okay, you knew that Kane was his half brother. Please, mind you. So the dynamic shift was amazing, and they couldn't have. I don't think anyone could have done it better than Taker, because you had to believe that he's back. He was buried alive, and he's back. You had to believe it, and he made me believe it.
What do you think about his Attitude Era matches against Stone Cold? They were a host of them.
Epic matches. If anyone is not interested in wrestling, I would say, okay, sit and watch those matches, and I bet you won't leave the room without watching 10 more.
You know, in each of those, that's the only time I wasn't supporting The Undertaker, but I was supporting the person who was wrestling The Undertaker. Because I was such a big Austin fan at that point in time that I just couldn't see Austin moves. Yeah.
But that's the whole point, right? Everyone was for Austin, and
the push that guy got at that point in time was fantastic.
And the timing was also right. They were winning the wars, so yeah.
And during the biker era, Undertaker was the good guy and Austin was the bad guy when he had partnered with Triple H.
And then
those matches were also epic. So the Brothers of Destruction versus Triple H and Stone Cold, they had a series of matches. Those were also quite kick-ass.
Beautiful matches. I think back then, Taker was actively making sure that, the guys get the push.
100%. He put John Cena over, he put Jeff Hardy over, he put Brock Lesnar over. So do you remember his ladder match with Jeff Hardy, I think for the US title or the Intercontinental title? where Taker won that match, and after that he shook Jeff Hardy's hand in the ring, saying that you won my respect. That was
Oh,
a
really? Oh,
brilliant moment.
I,
Yeah, Jeff Hardy was
oh,
like all of a kid that time, man. He just come into wrestling. Like he had
oh,
debuted as the Hardy Boys in the Hardy Boys, and it was about 2 years that he'd gone into singles competition. That's
hmm.
phenomenal. And backstage, I think John Cena had his first match and he was walking. This segment is so readily available on Facebook. And suddenly he sees the biker Taker standing. And Taker shakes his hand and says, "You won my respect." And John Cena, his expression was priceless.
Yeah. I remember the match with Edge where
Mm,
he won the title. Again, I think it's a WrestleMania match where he
yeah.
18. I am trying to say it's 18. Where he won the match, then he came back and he chokeslammed Edge through the ring,
Mm,
and that's how he ended the match. And that's how the titles change. I mean, that level of energy to have for, see, back then the matches were the main event matches, the pay-per-view matches were 30 minutes, 40 minutes,
yeah.
and now that's the average span for a normal Raw or a SmackDown match.
Mm,
But back then to put that much, and I
yeah.
think that was a hell in a cell match. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite match
Okay.
of Taker just making sure that the other guy gets that push.
So now let's go on to your favorite moment of the podcast. The 4 iconic years. Two with
So that
HBK, two with Triple H.
Taker.
So let's start with the
To
first match against HBK.
that was, I think that started an era of matches for me. See, post the end of era match for me, Taker's career was just making sure that the company does well. You know, the Brothers of Destruction matches, or the Roman Reigns match, or the Brock Lesnar match, or the Bray Wyatt match, they don't matter because he was just trying to make sure that his last matches are good and he's making sure that the company gets that from his goodwill. But those 4 matches, I mean, if you want to study professional wrestling, go and study those matches. Those are the matches for you. Right from your entrance to making sure that gong hits on the time, like to the T, and then
Mm,
the ring work. I mean, the promos that you cut prior to that match, leading up to that match, you want to have that hype. If it's a Taker match on a WrestleMania day, you have to make sure that it reaches the hype, and it did for all those 4 matches.
yeah.
The first one was, okay, I'm gonna challenge this man. Shawn Michaels is like, yeah, he's the big guy, I'm gonna challenge him, get it. And the second one is end of your career and versus end of your streak. I mean, the stakes couldn't be higher for anyone back then. And then he lost, and
But tell me,
Taker
before
being
we get into the second match, did you for a minute think that the streak is going to come to an end, or were you very sure that the career will come to an end?
I didn't know. I didn't know what Vince was thinking. I had no clue. Even if I had a prediction, it was, I don't know, 50-50 toss up. I had no clue what was gonna happen.
Actually, I'm with
Because
you on that because Shawn Michaels challenged them again. And when Taker said that you put your career on the line, I for a minute thought that Shawn can't end his career just like that. I mean,
yeah,
will it be over? Like if Undertaker, if the streak ends, it's still. I mean, I'm such a big HPK fan also that I was like, if the streak ends, but if the career lives on, I'm still okay with that. But if the career is only over, then I mean, that's
what
going to be really
yeah,
sad.
yeah,
Yeah,
but they made sure that we believed it. It was
yeah, 100%.
streak.
Because if they were to have that second match after the first, they had to up the stakes here because I mean, two legends, and one is putting his career on the line, and the other is putting his streak on the line. So I mean, it doesn't get better than that now because if you don't have any gravitas to the match, then one just feels that it's just going to be a repeat of last year. But they made sure that they take it a notch higher. Similarly, for the Triple H match, they got the Hell in a Cell. They got Shawn Michaels as the referee. They built that whole angle that I've retired him, I'll retire you also. I mean, that was such brilliant storytelling. Yeah,
No, but
it was.
see, do you have your first Shawn Michaels versus Taker? Okay, done and dusted. The second one, cried my balls out when HBK retired, and Taker being Taker, he somehow
Pulled
got
him
up,
up.
shook his hand,
Yeah.
and he went and made sure that he gets the stage, because
And
after
on
all, he's
Shawn
Mr.
Michaels' retiring speech also, I think the next night on Raw, Taker made an entry and he acknowledged with his hat, if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was also
And
phenomenal.
I think that was that for Ric Flair or was that for Shawn
No.
Michaels?
So for Ric Flair, though, he had come only when Shawn Michaels retired.
Okay.
Ric Flair, Undertaker was the last guy to enter the ring. And he made this typical gesture of going like this to acknowledge Ric Flair. And for Shawn Michaels, he just came on the apron and he did his hat gesture. And Shawn Michaels was so emotional at that point in time because that's not kayfabe, man. That's reality. And you can, if you understand the business well, you can totally make out when it's kayfabe and when it's actually
happening.
Those are true emotions coming out. Because the second time when they did that group hug at the apron after the second match, that was like, it gave me the jitters, man. I was like, fuck, this is so true. This is truly an end of an era. Three greats are not going to be seen this regularly now.
Ever again.
Yeah. I mean, they wrestled in bits and pieces after that.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's just leave the super rounds and everything else.
Exactly. I mean, the Brothers of Destruction versus the DX match in Super Showdown, or whenever that happened about 2-3 years back, wasn't required. And even that match exactly. That was just like, अभी मेलबर्न जा रहे हैं तो एक बिग कार्ड रखो ताकि लोग आए देखने आए वो वैसा ही था.
तो मत बात करो, because I want to cherish those 4 matches and I want to focus there because I know he was in his prime. The first match with Triple H, that was okay. Shawn couldn't do it. I think Triple H can. He's bulkier. He's the guy. Entrances epic. You have Triple H coming out of
the build-up was also exactly that. The build-up was that my buddy couldn't do it, I'll do it. And I'll do this for my buddy.
You remember the promo. No, I'll just
just refresh my memory.
So the build-up is Taker takes the stage. He says, "Oh, I've done it. I've retired Shawn Michaels." That's it. End of speech. And then you have Triple H coming in his leather jacket. I think it was Motorhead playing, and the game is here. He just stares at Taker, and they both look at the WrestleMania board on the right, and that's it.
Yeah. Now I remember. There was no conversation. It was all through expression.
Nothing. Nothing. And then that's how the first match happened. The first match happened, and Triple H lost, which was expected. Yeah. He was gonna lose it. But Taker didn't get up. He didn't get up.
Taker was carried away from the arena.
Yeah. And that's
why he insisted on a second match, because he wanted to show to the world that he can walk his way back. And Triple H had gone into this corporate avatar.
Yeah. And, Triple H was concerned that, is he okay or not? And the ref is trying to, make sure that it's still, they're still maintaining their characters. He's like, okay, you go there, you take care. And he had a broken hand or some fracture in his hand. And Triple H was walking and Taker is on a stretcher. And the interviews post that, oh my God, there's a documentary for the same, wherein you have people like Michael Hayes and John Cena and Batista and everyone saying that, that guy lost but still could walk. But this guy, he won the match and still couldn't stand on his 2 feet. What does that say about the entire match, which was so epic? And then the next year, the stakes were humongously high. You have Shawn Michaels telling Triple H all throughout the promos and, the build up to that, saying, don't do it. It's not necessary. You don't have to do it because he's a dead guy. He will survive anything and everything. And then he's the guest referee, bam. No, it's a Hell in a Cell, bam. And you have, the build up was there and I was totally invested in it.
100%.
Then you have You have
And
the kick, you have the
it's
pedigree.
testament to Taker that he figured that if I couldn't walk on my 2 feet in the first match, back the entrance ramp, then I have to do a second match where I prove to the world that I'm still as healthy and as fine to wrestle and to walk on my 2 feet and go back. Because that's why he was insisting on a second match when Triple H had gone into the corporate avatar. And then the way Shawn Michaels was brought into the storyline was like fantastic.
Beautiful, conceptualized and
Yeah,
executed by the
100%.
entire team.
Now I have to ask you about the Undertaker Brock Lesnar match. You should spend some time there because
I have negative remarks on that because
no. So whatever you think, you should be upfront and honest about that because truth be told, at least for me, I never thought that the streak is going to end here. Despite the fact that he was concussed in the first 6 minutes of the match, obviously no one knew that he was concussed. And I don't think that Undertaker till the nth hour knew that he's going to lose to Brock Lesnar because he was supposed to win. And then Vince McMahon decided to change.
So again, there was no need. You could have put Roman Reigns there for all I could care because you had.
But Roman Reigns had barely just debuted then as a part of the Shield.
Yeah. That is my whole point. You see, Brock Lesnar didn't need that hype. He was already a big star, even when he returned.
I'll tell you something, Amrita. If Vince McMahon had that change of heart that Undertaker should be ending the streak now, tell me one guy was bigger or more powerful or more relevant than Brock Lesnar to whom Undertaker could lose. There was no one. At least in my books, there was no one. And I think that's precisely the reason that Vince McMahon had a change of heart because I think Brock Lesnar is the only guy who in kayfabe and in reality in terms of believing that this guy can beat Taker is the guy who should be like ending the streak.
No, but remember the podcast with Stone Cold when Vince McMahon was like, why did Stone Cold obviously asked, why did you decide to end the streak? And I was not convinced with the answer because it had to end. I mean, you could have done it for some other guy and not Brock. That is my personal opinion, And Taker was not in his prime, so you.
But was there another guy? That's my question. Who could end the streak?
You could have waited for a year or so. He was still going to wrestle for the same company, for the same business. So you could have waited for a year or so. If you still want to put him in a match, okay, I understand that it's WrestleMania. You have to have Taker on the cards. Then do it with some other guy.
No, there's a difference of opinion because I think Brock Lesnar was the perfect guy to differ. But I'll just digress a little that why do you think Stone Cold never wrestled Undertaker at WrestleMania? Was Stone Cold too big a guy to think that I can't be a guy who loses to Undertaker so that the streak is alive at WrestleMania? Or what could be the reason? Because they've never wrestled at WrestleMania.
I don't think that creatively those paths crossed. That's because you had Stone Cold doing something or the other and Taker also doing something or the other. So I don't think those two paths crossed there.
Did Rock and Undertaker ever wrestle in WrestleMania?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think so. They did once. That's way too early. I think we can check, but they did. I think once.
So tell me about after Undertaker lost to Brock Lesnar, was the Bray Wyatt match really required?
No.
So no. Spend 2 minutes on that and tell us what you think about why that match shouldn't have happened.
So see, firstly, I think they just wanted to get that, two guys in the creepy genre fighting it out because Bray Wyatt bought in a character which was so spooky, like Undertaker had done it. So they just wanted to see what if we have these two in one ring and see what happens. And that's the match where I see Bray Wyatt carrying Undertaker all throughout the match. It was Bray Wyatt who was making sure that everything goes all right. And usually it's the other way.
In all honesty, Taker had put on some weight also that time. He wasn't in his.
He wasn't well. He was not in training. He was not in shape, and I don't know why he had to be on that card WrestleMania card and he did it. So for me, the Taker moments are, after end of an era match, I just directly want to go to the Boneyard match. That's it for
No,
me.
but before we go there, let me understand this from you. That do you think that when the Bray Wyatt Taker match happened, you as a Taker fan or you as the audience started to somewhere believe that Taker could be losing more now at WrestleMania, considering he's already lost to Brock Lesnar? Or did you think that Bray Wyatt will be put over, but Taker will still win that match?
See, for me, it made no sense. I mean, I did not understand the objective of that match. You had to have Taker there. You can't have a WrestleMania and not have Taker in it. So I understand that was the point, and they thought, okay, who in the current locker room could do it and do justice to it? It would have been Bray Wyatt. So the dynamics didn't work for me, nor did the storyline, nor I understand why they did it, but it didn't work for me. They could have just done something else, but I don't know what else. So this is the option that they had, and they went with it.
And when Taker wrestled, go on.
And again, similarly, the match with John Cena. I mean,
I'll get to that. Before that, I wanted to understand from you about what you felt about the Taker Reigns match.
Oh, I have mixed
feelings. And then after that,
it.
he sort of hung up his coat, his gloves, his hat. So, did you think this is it? Because for a moment,
I cried that day.
I'd taken a half day from work, and I like if Taker and Reigns are wrestling, कुछ ना कुछ तो मतलब खत्म होने वाला है यहाँ पे, because they were both faces, and Reigns was the guy who was being given the push that time.
And I was like, why was Reigns given so much at the start? I mean, it didn't make sense to me. I was that fan who would boo every time Reigns was on my screen, and I knew Vince wanted to put him over. So Taker was obviously gonna lose. But it was a sloppy work by Taker. Even he admits it that he was not into it.
He wasn't in the best physical shape also. With all due respect, the guy had a bit of a paunch also there.
He did. And he did put a lot of effort into it. So I mean, the poor chap Reigns, he was just barely starting his career, and you are wrestling the legend who is the Undertaker. It didn't work. And then you knew what the end was. It happened. Reigns, being the guy he is, he led the stage. He left it so that Taker could have his moment. And there's a director's cut as well to that, where he removes his jacket, the gloves, and the hat, and you could see everyone crying.
I cried.
I was full on.
I was in shock 2 years back, and then I cried. So shock resulted in cry.
I didn't like that match, nor did I like the ending, but I understand they had to do it.
Now let's come to the John Cena thing. So before you dwell on that, I think it's very simple to understand that Taker wasn't fit and he wanted one more WrestleMania moment, because he was hitting the gym like crazy and he was like trying to get into a much better physique. So was it only fair that if he had to have one more WrestleMania moment, John Cena is the right guy to do it with? So tell me about that, and then let's dwell into the match.
Yeah. So Cena is the kind of guy who is in shape 365 days a year. He is always in shape. He is always there. Even with the
Hollywood
recent
Cena.
match. Even Hollywood Cena. He is in shape. Yeah. So even with the match, even the recent match with Reigns, he was in shape. I think he was much fitter than, I mean, no offense to Roman Reigns fans, but he was better looking. 100%. Like physique wise, he was better than Cena. So he is that reliable guy. And when you have Taker coming out from an injury and surgery and thoda sa out of shape, you need someone who you can trust and who can take that match ahead. Now that match in itself is so problematic because you have Taker coming in doing his 5 best moves and that's it, the match is done.
नहीं, but उससे पहले मेरे को बताओ कि एलाइस की उसमें जरूरत थी क्या? वो क्या कर रहा था?
You had 30 minutes. Taker could take 10 minutes. Now, what do you do for the next 20 minutes? So they had to fill in somehow or the other. The writers thought, okay, let's bring in some poor chap and let John Cena show his moves. And because at the end of the day, John Cena is just going to get beaten up. He has no
that's my
chance of
second
retiring.
question, that thoda sa matlab, should John Cena and Taker, should have they had a match that would have gone for a slightly higher duration where it could have been a little more competitive? Because I think it was just the 5 knuckle shuckle that John Cena did, and after that Taker did the choke slam, the tombstone. That was it.
So see, you need to have that persona. You have your Goldberg, who comes in, gets gives straight three spears and a jackhammer, and you're done. You have built that persona for the guy that, you know, his 2 moves are enough. That is not the case with Taker. He needs to take his own time.
Exactly.
He needs to.
And plus, it's John Cena is the opponent here. He's not like an everyday guy.
That's my point.
I would think that instead of having Elias there, if John Cena and Taker could have spent some more time in the ring, that would certainly have been better.
That he couldn't do it physically. He was all out. So he couldn't. Even if you see the docu-series, he was not happy with it. He said, I'm not doing a good part, and I want to go on a high note. And that's why he kept on doing these WrestleMania matches.
So after the John Cena match, it was directly the Boneyard match, right? In 2019, he had to do a WrestleMania match.
Yeah. So, so you had the Triple H, then you had one with CM Punk, then Brock Lesnar, then Bray Wyatt, then Shane McMahon, then Roman Reigns.
Shane McMahon also. And that also, he was looking very overweight there, Taker. I mean,
he pulled it off.
He did a decent job. But I was quite impressed with Shane McMahon's high flying.
He did a decent job, and that match is it is that what are those prizes called if it's not the first 3?
Consolation prize. Consolation prize.
Sorry. So it's like the consolation. A mention is enough that, you know, the match with Shane McMahon was okay. Now coming to the Boneyard match, I mean, that was beauty. And
no, there was not much of a build-up also there. I mean, thoda bahut tha ke there was some random event happening, and Undertaker comes in his dead man avatar. He tombstones AJ Styles, and then they start building a rivalry where AJ Styles starts getting personal with Michelle McCool. And
I get it, but
I was just glad that he didn't come in as dead man avatar, because the Boneyard match only demanded Undertaker to come on a bike. Come in as bike avatar.
Yeah, but you know the story of how it happened, right?
Hasn't they set up this whole cinematographic angle because of COVID, no?
Yeah, so COVID was there, and they had no clue on how to shoot WrestleMania. So Edge and
wasn't it Triple H's brainchild, the way this match was conceptualized?
Yes. So what he did was, NXT, the takeover prior to WrestleMania was done and dusted. And Triple H had his crew on standby. He said, okay, let's finish the, A-lister matches and, be done with it. So WrestleMania was a 2-day event, if you remember.
Yeah.
So for Boneyard, they had nothing. Even the creative team, nor Vince, nothing. No one had anything.
It was the main event on night 1, right? If I remember.
Yeah, correct. So they had no thought on how to do it. So what they did was they went and they saw this location, and they were like, okay, let's do it here. But it was just a yard. So they converted that whole yard. Vince was like, okay, how do we do it? So Triple H was the one who suggested, okay, let me take up my NXT crew because they are more equipped to handling such sort of situation wherein things are not always at their best positions. And with the Thunderdome in place, every WWE main crew was busy there because you didn't know what was going to happen, how the restrictions were placed. So this is actually the Team B, the NXT crew going there. They had the cameras and the setup, and Triple H almost directed. I don't want to say directed, but he was the one who did the whole setup, the whole match, the fumes, the making sure that okay, punchlines in terms of okay, the dialogue is delivered here and there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that happens, and everyone was very happy with that product. You are
100%.
happy,
That was
I am
beautiful.
happy.
The only thing I didn't like about that was those random druids coming. They had nothing to do. I was still okay with his two sidekicks, but those druids were just coming and standing and Taker's hitting one by one. Like you're putting the bowling ball and it takes the 9 pins together. तो मतलब
See,
वो थोड़ा बॉलीवुड
थोड़ा
एलिमेंट हो गया था. हाँ.
थोड़ा Bollywood आ
But
रहा है.
for me, the epic moment was when Undertaker is in the grave and he's going to put the mud on him, this thing to bury him, and suddenly the lights come and Undertaker standing behind him. Remember that? That was too
Yeah.
good. And that was the only thing I found a little scary, not exactly scary, but it gave me slight shivers. And I was hoping that he rolls up his eyes that time, but he didn't.
He didn't, yeah. But
Yeah,
it was amazing. It was like using
100%, 100%. The way the
barnyard.
entire match was told, it was brilliant. And last May when AJ Styles is begging for mercy and Taker like sort of pats him, and then he turns back and then he kicks him in. So that was also too good. And then he ties his bandana again. He starts his bike and into the sunset. Yeah. And that was actually very beautifully told because that was, I mean, it sort of felt that now this is his last match, and when he drives away, he's like driving into the sunset. This is it. I think somewhere Taker was also very happy, and he thought that this is the befitting moment to retire.
Yeah. And against AJ Styles, credit where it is due. AJ Styles is a worthy opponent. He
100%. He played the match really well. Really.
He knew how to carry. Again, coming back to that height and physical stature dynamic that worked for them. Even though Styles is way shorter than Taker, it just worked because he is AJ Styles, the phenomenal one. It worked. So that's where my thoughts are on the Boneyard.
And Undertaker looked very smart in that match. I mean, his avatar was too good. Like, very brilliant.
Again, the build up to that was the Dead Man, and the end was the American Badass. So it culminated his.
No, because he got personal. No, he got personal. So Undertaker was like, अब इसको मैं दिखाता हूँ जो मैं हूँ. वो थोड़ा वैसे हुआ था.
Very nice. Which is very nice.
Yeah. Do you want to spend like 2 minutes on the Survivor series that followed, where those legends had come to honor Taker, and Taker came in and gave his retirement speech in his Dead Man avatar, and how was it?
That I
Did you feel sad that day?
Yeah, very, very sad. And I could have watched more. I wanted to see what these legends think of Taker, what they feel for Taker, because that's me as well. I am that fan who feels lots and lots of things for Taker.
But there were so many guys there. Yeah? There was the Godfather, there was Savio Vega, there was Rikishi. You remember the choke slam that Rikishi got from the top of the Hell in a Cell? The top of the cell on that.
That
on
was
those...
Mankind.
No. So Mankind too was obviously Taker threw him in 98. Rikishi was thrown on this cart full of straws. When I think there was
the truck.
A lot of people in that match. It was some 5-6 people wrestling Hell in a Cell. So that was like epic, man.
Man, I can still hear Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross in my ear. So
going forward, what do you see Undertaker, in which capacity do you see Undertaker contributing to WWE?
Right now, I just want him to chill and do nothing, because Ric Flair made a joke of himself when he switched brands. I'll be honest.
I'm sure Undertaker will never switch brands, but if he is to continue with WWE, in which capacity should he continue? What should he be?
NXT, maybe an NXT coach, or maybe somewhere behind the scenes. I don't want him on my screen. He obviously must be contributing something or the other to the guys who are in the locker room right now. So yeah.
So you don't want to see him on screen? Like a
No,
random
no.
interview?
He's done that quite a lot
What if
after he
Mark
retired.
Calaway heads to the ring and gives an interview? Would you like that?
Not really. Not really.
How? I'm
What
going to
about
ask you
you?
I wouldn't mind, because I can't get enough of the guy, whether be it Taker, whether be it Calaway, whether be it whoever. If I get a chance to see him, I'll still see him. Now let me put the $1 million question to you. When do you see him getting inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Oh, that has to be like after all the norms are, the COVID norms are out of the way, because he would want that fanfare. He did those 30 years for the people, for those audience members. So whenever we can have a WrestleMania which is huge enough, is the stadium is packed, that's when he should be inducted.
But thankfully now audiences are allowed. So do you see him getting
Yes.
inducted in the next WrestleMania?
Um,
And the second question to that is, who do you think should be inducted?
oh, I
So
have.
first you answer the first one, whether you see it happening next year, and then you tell me who should be.
In the next couple of years, I would say couple of years, because I'm not sure. Undertaker is not someone who would be just Hall of Fame. It has to have a different, separate show altogether. So even if WrestleMania is his main event, he would want it. Some tribute of sorts to him. He's given so much to the company that the company would do something or the other for him, which is grand in nature, just for making sure that, okay, you've spent so much time with us, this is a way of saying thank you. So next couple of years is how I see him being inducted in the Hall of Fame. So for me, next year or the year after that, I think if it's in his hometown, then that's the year when he can get inducted. And as far as the second part of the question is concerned, I
Houston,
think it has to be
Texas, you mean?
Texas, yes, Texas.
Yeah, Houston, Texas. And who
Houston.
should be inducted again?
Vince McMahon, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Okay. I was thinking you might say Kane, but I think
No,
Vince
no,
McMahon
no,
is
no.
the right guy.
Yeah. McMahon, man, he made that character. So for me, it's Vince McMahon.
Amrita, have you realized we've been speaking on the legend for a good 1 hour now? It's been so seamless. And I mean, I think we can speak the entire night. I know one episode is enough to honor the legend, but I think we should end it here. And I need some good parting words from you on the legend, and then we'll just end the show.
I feel Taker is someone who you need to take seriously to understand what this business is all about. You need to have that passion, not just for professional wrestling or entertainment, but the kind of hard work and effort that he put in just one character. Of course, it had different avatars, but if you wish to succeed in life, that's how much work you should put in, and that's how you that the loyalty and the faithfulness he had towards that character is something that I aspire to achieve someday in life. That I want to be that faithful to my work. He was that person, and he's that inspiration for me.
So guys, for me, if you have the will to succeed, then following Taker's journey is the only option you have. Because he teaches you charisma, he teaches you ambitions, he teaches you loyalty, he teaches you relevance, he teaches you anything under the sun. I mean, he is an institution in himself. I think Taker should be the guy who should be a case study in management schools also. He is that big a guy. So this is Amrita Khare and Pranay Ranga signing off. We'll be back with another legend soon. And please like, share, subscribe. Thank you, Amrita.
Thanks, Pranay. Always lovely being here.
Cheers.